Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. As always, my name is Jay, and in this video I'm going to do a quick compare and contrast, kind of pun intended, between two different contrast paints from GW, from Citadel, that are both black. Now, for those of you who've watched my videos, you know I love the contrast paints. I love the glazing style, and just it saves you a lot of time, makes painting so much more efficient. I've been having a great time painting my Dark Angels using contrast paints. And one of my favorite contrast paints that I love to use is by far Black Templar. I love Black Templar. It's a nice thin paint, of course. It goes on really nicely, and I've been using for gaps in armor, coiled wiring, guns. And what it does do is it dries a nice, pretty much a black in the recesses, but a dark matte gray in the raised areas. So it instantly has that contrast and it goes over nicely. And I usually paint it in areas that I really don't need to do a second color or a highlight. It's just pre-done, and I really love that. It looks so good on Space Marines. I've been really enjoying it so far. I've been using it for the last few years. I've used it on my Gene Stealer cult, my Dark Angels, my other Space Marines. Love it. And I've been using Black Templar exclusively for my blacks. It's replaced my gray liner from Reaper a while ago. But of course, a little while ago, Citadel came out with a new line of contrast paints, including what are they calling monochromatic or monopigment contrast paints, and different shades of the same colors. And one of the colors that they came out in the latest wave was, of course, Black Legion. And all the pictures of Black Legion show that it's a much, much darker black, in that there's a lot less contrast between the raised areas and the recesses. But of course, those are in pictures. And so I wanted to make a quick video comparing and contrasting these two blacks and see which one would I actually keep going forward, right? I would love to know, is the Black Legion a great improvement? Is it better on grays or whites? Is it worse on them? How does it react? Is it, how does it appear? And so I figured I'd make a quick video. So for this video, once again, I'm going to be using these Orc Boys that you can see here. The reason why I'm using the old 2nd edition plastic Orc Boys is, number one, it's a mono build, so there's no difference in shadowing, in sculpt, in any of the details, right? They're identical in every way. Number two, they're easy. I'm lying around my office. And number three, they actually have some great detail and contrast. They have the grain on the wood. They have, armor. So they're fun to use. And so what I did was I started off by priming the models gray, so a mid-tone gray, using a combination of white and gray primer from my Steinores primer group. And I also painted another two using white, using Steinores white primer. Now the reason why I'm starting with these two colors is because when I'm doing my glazing method and slap chop, I usually typically do the first color being black, second color being gray, the mid-tone gray, and the third color being white. So the grays are going to act as if the mid-tone, before you start your glazing, and the whites will act as the highlight color when you do your glazing. So I just wanted to see in more detail, how do these colors react with both of the two priming colors. So of course, as I mentioned, I primed them both, and then I started off by painting both colors, a gray and a white, using Black Templar. I gave it a great shake. I used my shading brush from the Citadel line, and as you can see here, I applied a nice heaping amount over the model. First, of course, with the gray, and then repeating with the white just after that, getting a solid coat on the models, and then I cleaned up a little bit of the excess using, I cleaned off my brush and then picked up the excess details, just picked up the excess amount of pigments, and that way it didn't pool too much. But as I said, I wanted to get a nice solid coat over the model in one quick fell swoop, that way it didn't dry weirdly. And after that was all done, I then repeated the process with Black Legion, of course. I gave both paints, as I mentioned, a good shake, and then I took Black Legion and, once again using my shading brush, applied a very healthy amount over the gray primed orc and the white primed orc. As you can see here, once again getting a great solid coat, picking up the extra pigments shortly afterwards with a dry brush, and then I just simply let both of them dry. As I said, it's just for this color, I'm just trying over these two colors. I just want to do a quick, see how they react and what would I recommend. So I let them both dry for a bit. Oh, and for those of you wondering, I did not use a black primer for this experiment because I figured both colors would just look very black over a black primer. I don't think there would be much of a difference. And of course, before I started this experiment, I was anticipating a much stronger difference in appearance on the white one, obviously, because it has the brighter contrast between the recesses and the surface, versus the gray. Since it's a darker primer, I figured they both appear darker and they'd be closer in appearance. So let's look at the results. I was actually kind of surprised by the results. First, let's start off by contrasting the two gray primed models. As you can see, as I predicted, once again, the Black Legion model on the right is a lot darker. There is very little contrast between the recesses and the raised areas. So if you're going for a solid black without really much any contrast in the raised areas over a gray primer, I'd actually recommend the Black Legion. But as you can see on the Black Templar model, there is a lot of contrast between the recesses and the raised areas. The recesses are a dark color, basically a black. The raised areas are a cool, lighter gray. And so that's cool. I still prefer the look of the Black Templar because I want contrast between my recesses and my raised areas. It acts as a highlight, right? Makes sense. But things got a little bit more interesting with the white primed models. Let's take a look at those. So, as you can see, the difference becomes much more exaggerated on the white primed models, and also in a peculiar way. Once again, the Black Templar has much more contrast between the raised areas and the recesses over the Black Legion, but the Black Legion, of course, is darker, but it's also much warmer, which is what actually surprised me about that. I didn't know how the temperature scale would work, but as you can see, the Black Templar on the left is much cooler of a gray than the Black Legion on the right, which is a much warmer gray. And to me, it doesn't appear very natural. When I wouldn't really use Black Legion over a white primer or over a very bright primer, because I don't want my recesses to be a black and my raised areas to be a warm gray. I'd prefer them to be a colder gray. It's a much more natural highlight color in my opinion. And I was quite surprised that the Black Legion produced such a warm color of gray on the raised areas. But there we go. And that was actually a really cool result of this fun comparison. And there you have it. So once again, over a darker primer, like a gray, or when you get closer to black, there's the difference between the two is muted. Though, once again, the Black Legion produces a much darker color and a lot less contrast between the raised areas and the recesses, versus the Black Templar, which has a much much brighter contrast between the raised areas and the recesses, and it's a cool gray. But when you get to the whites, that was actually where, as I said, things were very surprising. And the Black Templar was the standard result. Black in the recesses, a cool gray on the raised areas. But the Black Legion produced a darker color in the recesses and a warm gray in the raised areas, which to me just felt weird. Yeah, so that's the difference. Going forward, I'm still going to probably stick with my Black Templar since I love to use a white primer or white highlights. To me, I like the coolness of the Black Templar versus the warmness of the Black Legion. But what do you think? Leave comments in the comment section down below. Have you tried this out? Which is your favorite black from the contrast range? Which one do you prefer? As I said, and please like this video, comment in the comment section down below, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. It really does help a lot. Stay tuned for more reviews of paints and brushes and painting materials. And until next time, this is Jay saying happy painting with Contast Black.